Hello, friends. Today I'm sharing with you how I made a Scrappy Christmas quilt for this year. Now, I've had this box of scraps for a couple of years, and I didn't sort it out or do anything with it. After I made Christmas quilts, I just threw everything in a box. So I ran across that and I decided I'm going to use up some of those scraps and see what I can make out of them. So I decided to make strip sets. As you can see there, I've already started on one. But I didn't have a lot of scraps, or I didn't think I did. Now you just saw me toss a piece of fabric over my back, over my shoulder. I'm not throwing that in my floor. I have a cutting table right behind me. I'm in like a horseshoe area there. And so I'm just tossing things that I can't use that weren't even Christmas fabrics over my shoulder onto that cutting table. So I'm really not paying much attention to the width of the strips at this point, but I do think most of them are around 2 inches to 4 inches in width. Some of them are with the fabric length and some are shorter. And so you might have noticed just a moment ago that I sewed two shorter strips together to make it long enough to match the rest of the strip set. And I did that quite often, and it doesn't bother me because it is a scrappy quilt. So there might be joins anywhere. There might be two different fabrics joined together, and that's okay. And here you are about to see me do that again. I'm ripping just a little bit out there on the end of that red one because I need to add just a little bit to it. I thought it would be long enough, but I didn't measure it. So I'm going to add just a little bit to that and make it match the rest of the strip set. I could just trim it off to the shortest one, but then I lose a lot of fabric if I do that. So I don't want to do that if I can keep from it. And you might notice also that when I'm joining two strips, I am pressing those seams open. That way my strip set will lie a little bit flatter than if I pressed it to one side. Now you might notice that I have 2 or 3 different strip sets started there, and that's because I had several different lengths of my strips when I pulled them out, and I tried to just pair up all the ones that were close to the same length, and then I will be joining some of those together to get the width that I'm looking for. My plan is to make 12-inch blocks to put together, so I'm having to put quite a few strips together in order to get to that point. I may have to trim some down, but that's fine. I can do that. I'm trying to sort of press those as I go along because I don't want them to get wonky. The longer they are, the longer the strip sets are, the more likely they are to get kind of crooked and wonky. So I'm being very careful with that. Okay, I'm just going to keep pulling some strips out and adding to these strip sets until I get them where I would like for them to be. We need just a little bit bigger size on these. And I believe we finally have our first strip set wide enough to get 12-inch blocks from. So that's what we're going to do. We'll set that one aside for right now. Now I'm running out of strips, as you can see in my scrap box. I might be able to get just a few more out of there. I might have to piece some a little bit more. There's a good one. But I'll just keep digging and see what I can find, and then we'll go from there. My plan for this quilt is to construct it like a rail fence quilt so that one block will be going horizontally and the other will be going vertically. However, I do plan to put sashing and cornerstones between all the blocks, so that will give it a little bit different look from the normal rail fence quilt. Okay, we finally have enough width on our strip sets to start cutting our 12-inch blocks. Now, some people might think that's an awful lot of work to make blocks that you can use for a quilt, but it just makes me happy to be able to take something that could have been just tossed out and make something pretty out of it. So we'll see how many blocks I can get out of these two strip sets, and then we'll see what else we need to do. Well, it looks like I got about 6.5 blocks out of those 2 strip sets. So I have a ways to go. Now the reason that I'm going ahead and squaring up this half is because if I do happen to run low, I can always add 2 halves together to make one 12-inch block. And I'm good with that since it's a scrappy. So now you are seeing me grab some pieces that I tossed aside earlier, but now I'm going back and grabbing those and seeing what I can use out of those. They are not going to be as long of pieces as the other strips that I had, but I can piece those together and make them work. So I believe I'm using my 2.5-inch ruler there, or maybe my 3.5-inch. But when I'm making those scraps, I'll cut them either 2.5 or 3.5. So we'll see if we can get a few more out of that, and then we'll see where we need to go to get more if we need it. Here you are seeing me sew 2 of those half blocks together. May or may not need that, but at least I'll have it if I need it. So we have added quite a few more strip blocks, and I'm now getting those ready to put together in the next phase of this quilt. I just need to check those and make sure they're square. I always like to square up my blocks before I put them together. even just a little bit. If they're just a little bit off, sometimes it can mess up your quilt when you're trying to put it together, especially if it has a lot of piecing in it. So I'll just keep working on that and get those all squared up, and then we'll be right back. Okay, be sure and join me next on the next video where we will start putting all of these blocks together and build our quilt. Thanks for watching.